Well, now, before anything we say on this video, post this video, go look for a pen and paper because today we are talking about numbers. I'm going to show you how you screw up your things and the things that you do actually you do not even realize, and that's why you're actually struggling financially. Seriously, post this video. Oh, by the way, before you post the video, make sure that you like it and also subscribe. So once you do that, then post the video, go look for a pen and paper. Okay, thank you. Welcome. Now, today I'm going to show you something called all the numbers as far as your income are concerned. And today's topic is about if your income to debt ratio is 40%. I'm going to explain that. Yeah, don't hang around, okay? I'm going to explain. And then your rent is actually more than 30% of your total income and you're saving less than 20% of what you earn. You're supposed to worry a lot. Yeah, fine. Since now you have the pen and paper, let's go ahead. Let's take an example. You are employed somewhere, or maybe you have employed yourself and you have an income. So how much do you make per month? Put it out there, okay? Let's deal with this. Let's deal with Jeff. Yeah, here is Jeff. He makes, again, we said we're going to be using something called 50, let's say 50%, 50,000 a month, okay? Yeah, for those people who are earning less than this, I'm just using this one as an example. I did not say that I'm talking to people who earn 50,000. No, even if you earn 10, this still video is a video for you, okay? Now, Jeff earns 50,000, okay? Now, the Jeff's income to debt ratio is 40%. What does that mean? See, when the income shows up, there is something called recurrent expenditures. There are things that you have to buy. You cannot shake them off, like food, shelter, clothing, all blah blah blah, and all those kind of things. Again, on top of that, you might be having a debt. You must be servicing a certain debt, and that debt is actually taking 40% of your income. Now, what is 40% of 50,000? Seriously, what is 40% of 50,000? So those who are good at mathematics, because 10% of 50,000 is 5,000, correct? So it is 5,000, okay? That is 10%. So it is simply this one times 4 for us to get the 40%. Therefore, 40% of 50,000 is 20,000. Okay, what does it mean? Now, if you are debt, the debt that you're supposed to repay, that must be deducted from your salary is actually 20,000. Say you earn, when I say 20, I don't mean like average. I mean with response to 50. If you earn 100,000, then 40% is 40,000. If you earn 10,000 per month, then 40% of it is 4,000. Okay? If you earn 20,000, then it means 40% of it is 6,000. Okay, now if you actually get it, if Jeff earns 50,000, the debt repayment is actually 20,000 per month. Therefore, guess what happens? The Jeff purchasing power goes down by 20,000, meaning Jeff is remaining with what? 30,000 as the what? The amount of money. Basically, it's like quote unquote the real income because you've deducted this what? This 20,000 as the what? As the debt. Now, 40% to debt ratio, income to debt ratio 40%, this is simply what it means. Now, if you're in that kind of a situation, and again, the same amount of money that you're earning, it is way below. You know one thing, say you've not built, obviously you are renting and you have to pay what we call the rent. See, the rent is that money that you pay somebody who builds a home somewhere and then he tells you, live in my house and then you give me something, okay? Now, this rent that you're paying is actually over 30%, or it's 30% of your income. What is 30% of your income here? Which is 30,000. So 30% of this is actually what? 9,000. Because 10% of 30,000 is 3,000. 20% is 6,000. Therefore, it means 30% is 9,000. So you can do the mathematics now. 9,000 is the 30% of what? 30,000. At this particular point, now the purchasing power goes down to what? To 21,000. Okay? To 21. Are we correct? When we say 30% of 30,000, yeah, because 3,000, yeah, exactly. We are right. Now, the point is this. At this particular point now, you have a purchasing power of 21,000. And guess what's happening? Now, you are saving less than 20%. Okay, fine. I know you'll be like, What's the magic thing with 20%? We always say that 20% is that amount of money that you're supposed to save each and every month from your income. We say it's a minimum thing that you're supposed to be saving. If you save more than that, well and good. But you can find yourself in a situation whereby you are unable to actually go ahead and save this amount of money, maybe due to unavoidable circumstances. Maybe you have a very strict budget in terms of, let's say, you're having some kids that you're educating. Maybe you have some kids in university. Maybe let's say you have some very thorny debt that you have to cater. Maybe there is a disease and may God forbid for that. And maybe you just have that situation whereby you're forced by the circumstance such that you cannot be able to do what? You cannot be able to go ahead and budget yourself. Now here we are. You have yourself now the 21,000. Remember what? We've actually dealt with the debt and paying the rent. Guess what? We have not eaten. All right, and obviously eating goes around that amount of money that you're paying for your rent. Let's say you even live under budget, and maybe say you're doing the budget for 10,000. Now here comes the food. The food, you're giving it 10,000. So if you give food 10,000, you're remaining with 11,000. Remember one thing: the purchasing power still is going down and down and down and down. Guess what happens at the end of the day? So what happens is now having been left with 11,000 as your sort we call the clean cash. That's just you eating. You have not paid the utilities. If you pay the utilities, you deduct like 4,000, or let's say 3,000. Utilities, you do 3,000. Okay? Once you do 3,000, guess what happens? You remain with 8,000. All right? I'm just trying to show you, if your numbers are actually playing around this kind of a mathematics, then you're having yourself a very tight schedule out there. Remember one thing: we are supposed to save 20% of this, assuming that we didn't even buy the food and all the utilities and what have you. And we immediately, just like I always advise, deduct 21,000, deduct 20% of 21,000. 10% of 21,000 is 2,100. 20% of 21,000 is 4,200. So your savings ought to be 4,200. Now, remember one thing, it's 4,200. But remember one thing, this is 20% of what you are earning. This ought to be, the 20% ought to have been 20% of 50,000. So therefore it means if you were to rely with the initial figure of 50,000, the 20% of 50,000 ought to be 10,000. All right? 10 what? 10,000. Remember now, instead of saving 10,000, you're saving 42,000. Why? Because it's the amount of money that you're left with after catering for the debt, after doing for the rent, after doing, you get what I'm saying? Now you are short of saving how much? You're short of saving 5,000 or 4,800. Is it 5,800? Exactly. You're short of 5,800. Each and every day, you're actually reducing the rate at which you can achieve your dream by 5,800. And remember one thing, we are operating on a minimum savings per month with respect to the 50,000, not with respect to 21,000. Reason why I'm saying so, it is because it's the money that you're left with, because debt you must repay at the end of the day. Okay? But now I'm going to go to a point whereby, hey, what if I took a debt to invest? That's a different case. I'm talking about somebody who took a debt maybe to buy a property somewhere. That property, say, in a very weird place, and that place, well, there is this banking of understanding, hey, properties, lands are good, are amazing in terms of investments, are assets because they appreciate. All things are true. But the reality is, I want to show you exactly how you're actually constricting your cash flow to a point whereby you are barely surviving. All right? Now, here we are. But if maybe you took that loan and invested, maybe say in a matatu, or maybe you invested in something that is generating some cash out there, that is quite amazing, because all the numbers that I'm doing here becomes quote unquote useless. Why? Because the 50,000 or the 20,000 that you're actually repaying back as the debt, probably you're not even getting it from your salary. You're probably getting it from that money that you've invested after borrowing it out there. I hope I'm making sense. I hope I'm not losing you. That's why I said you're supposed to take a pen and paper. Now, here we are. We're actually saving 4,200. But the question is this: are we really saving? Can we actually be able to do so? If you, okay, fine, let's go. We are at 8,800. Let's now get this 4,800 from this, because basically from the 21,000. What happens? You're remaining with 4,000. We've just done the utilities. Probably we have the kids, we have not done the school fees. Probably we need to buy clothing. Probably we need to do the transport. Probably we need to... We cannot be able to do this. And this is why you find most of the people who are called the middle incomers, they are in this perpetual movement, or this cycle, or this rat race, whereby some of the money that you're earning at the end of the month, it is not even catering for their basic needs. You find them borrowing. They borrow and they borrow and they borrow. You borrow from up A, up B, up C, and all those kind of things, to a point whereby they even feel like, guess what? I feel like I can even bust out there. You know why? Because I cannot even tell exactly what is going on. I'm earning a 50 Gs a month, but I do not know. Then you trace back where his money is going. There is a 20 Gs that is going towards servicing an asset that is not generating any income. I know the dream of buying land is real in Kenya. A lot of people would love to buy the land, but you aren't even surviving well because, hey, most of the chunk is going to work. You see, sometimes if you ask me, and that's according to me, again, at all the time, consult your financial advisor so that you can get the appropriate thing, okay? And if you'd like me to be, then go ahead and grab that number from the description of this specific video. But the point is this: if you ask me, I don't find any essence of me using my income that I trade my time from 9 to, what do you call it, from 8 to 9, or what, 5 to 11, or 9 to 11, something goes 9 to 5 or something. It doesn't make any sense getting that dear money that I'm earning as a salary and then buying a property or an asset that is not generating any cash flow. And then I even feel like, hey, guess what? Instead of me doing that, why don't I invest that money in something like it's actually generating something? It is good to understand what you need when. You see, there is a time when you need the cash flow more than anything else. There is a time you'll need, you see, when you're starting, and this is quite the funny thing, and I would you like to put it down on paper. See, when you're starting life, when you're growing by, when you're at your 20s and the early 30s, say like sort of a little bit of 40s, you really need cash flow. You really need cash flow because cash is king. You need to grow, you need to multiply, you need to expand your wealth, you need to expand your territories. And again, there are two phases in life when you really need cash flow: when you're starting up the life and when you actually retiring, when you are retired. That's the two sets of life when you need cash flow. So it is good to understand those magical three phases of a human being. When you're starting, you need cash flow because you need to grow, you need to invest, you need to expand, you need to grow money. And then the time comes when you need to store money. It's now when you're starting to phase out from the young age and old age. In between there, you need now to channel it towards your mind. All that what you've been working towards, putting in an asset that are generating income. Because as you transit to the old age, again, you need cash flow because you need a lot of things. You need attention. You need to be taken care of. You need to eat. You need to do service a lifestyle. You need to do all those kind of things. Probably you build yourself a very big mansion that has like 14 bedrooms, has like, I don't know, 71 bulbs that are consuming electricity. You have freezers. You have everything. There's a lifestyle that you created all the time that you're active. All that means that you have to pay the bills. Therefore, you need cash. You don't need title deeds. You don't need all those. You need cash. That's the difference, and that's the reality. So it is good to understand. See, now when you're growing, when you're starting up, you get, for God's sake, you just got employed. Therefore, you get 20 G's out of yourself. You go buy a property that you do not even have the capacity to develop it. If you're doing some pottery there, well and good. If you're doing some pigs, if you're doing something, at least something is generating cash flow from that specific property, well and good, go ahead and buy it. But I usually see people struggling. You have a piece of property somewhere, but you're barely educating your kids. You're barely living by, you take another 4 or 5 years to acquire that piece of property. Then you take another 6 years to build yourself a home because you took a loan to build your house or a home. All those 10, 15 years, you've not been doing anything as far as yourself is concerned. And then you show up at 45, you're like, wow, that was a quite of a journey. Now, show me, how can I invest? Because I don't want to retire without money. I don't want to do these kind of things. You're like, you see, when you're 40, you kind of tend to have what you call the anxiety, the stresses, because you feel like, wow, the retiring is just breathing at your back. It's about to show up, and you really need to get it right now. And this is why I usually find a very tough time, especially dealing with somebody who is above 45 years and they've never invested. They know nothing about investment. They were all playing safe and comfortable. At this particular point, they kind of scrutinize, they question you, like, are you sure this money will work? Are you sure that this investment is actually going to pick it up? Are you really sure? Are you like, you know why you're doing all those things? It's because you have the anxiety. It's because you're actually feeling like things are moving out too fast. You know, you feel like, hey, guess what? If I can just get like 10 years, yeah, I can be able. That's not how we do about it. So it's always good to find a balance of all those three things together so that at least you can have a comfortable life. That's the reality about life anyway, guys. Guess what? That's my video about if you have a debt to ratio of 40% and you have a rent of 30%, and again, you're not saving even 20% of your earnings. I'm not a motivational speaker. I tell people the truth. You're supposed to worry a lot. And of course, worrying is not the solution. Solution here is when you worry, it means that you're not doing the right thing. Therefore, it means that you're supposed to adjust yourself so that you can do the appropriate and right thing. Well, if you got the sense out of this video, come on, hit that like button. Don't be mean, okay? And also make sure that you comment down below, tell me what you think. And also, why don't you hit that subscription button? The importance of that is that you get me notified whenever I upload a new good video. For now, it's a good goodbye and see you in the next one.